Every month, GameRanks rounds up the most worthwhile games to check out over the next month. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, the top 10 new games of June 2022. Starting off at number 10, it's Diablo Immortal, which started off as a mobile-only game, and only recently we found out it was going to be a game that would also come out on PC. Now, the version of it that everybody's getting on mobile is going to be the version that is basically done and ready to go, where they're opening a beta on the same day, June 2nd, where the PC version will sort of be maybe not necessarily in perfect condition, but obviously playable condition, because cross-play and cross-progression are going to be available in both. It kind of seems like what happened was they were making Diablo Immortal and found that it was so good they wanted to release it on other platforms as well. It makes sense. It looks like a good game. A lot of people kind of got irritated with the announcement when it was only an Android and iOS game, and I guess they think that it's worthwhile to bring to the PC. It certainly looks good. Now, this is a free-to-play, massively multiplayer Diablo game that, to be frank, looks like it might actually be a sort of worthwhile experience in terms of free-to-play. Having Diablo 4 be a very specifically traditional Diablo game kind of gives this some room to be its own thing, which I think increases the likelihood of it being at least decent. I think it's probably going to be good, unless they get really greedy with the free-to-play stuff. Like I said, that's coming to iOS, Android, and PC on June 2nd. At number 9 is Cuphead, the delicious Last Course DLC, which is, of course, exactly as it describes, the final big DLC for the game. It also introduces a new character in the form of Miss Chalice, begging the question if they're finally starting to think about not just sequel possibilities, given how big of a media franchise Cuphead has basically become. Obviously, that would make a large amount of sense, given Cuphead is, a great game, and for all intents and purposes, all of the spin-offs, animated series, etc., has all been pretty successful, and people want more Cuphead. Well, for one, this is more Cuphead, so if that's what you're jonesing for, this is where you go for now, but I also have a feeling it is a bit of a preview of things to come in terms of adding more characters and more stuff, more moves, etc., which is something we of course like to see. Cuphead, the delicious Last Course DLC is coming to all platforms Cuphead is on June 30th. And number 8 is The Elder Scrolls Online High Isle, which is obviously a new Elder Scrolls story taking place, firstly, in The Elder Scrolls Online, secondly, in lands never before seen in any Elder Scrolls, including Amanos, a very vertical place with lots of cliffs, castles, etc. The story involves a conspiracy where a secret order of knights is looking to disrupt peace talks, prolonging the war, and we're quite a ways off from The Elder Scrolls 6, and even a little ways off from Starfield, so this is a good way to tide over your Bethesda storytelling. Elder Scrolls Online High Isle comes to PC, Mac, via Steam and Stadia on June 6th, and on consoles, including the Xbox Series and the PS5, on June 21st. At number 7 is Starship Troopers Terran Command, a real-time strategy game that takes you into a world that really hasn't been explored in a lot of media, the Starship Troopers universe. Now, I'll say not a lot of it is going to seem foreign to you. It is not a strange RTS. It's pretty much what you would expect from one, but Starship Troopers is a kind of different media franchise. It's kind of a satire, and I'm sure that translates to the game itself to at least some extent. And second, the bad guys are arachnids. It's not a human versus human war, it's a human versus alien threat war. And oddly enough, the kind of story that we're talking here is one that we usually see play out in like third-person shooters. So it's interesting to see an RTS just from that perspective, and it will also be fun to see how a Starship Troopers story plays out in a video game. Starship Troopers Terran Command is coming out on PC on June 16th. And number 6 is Madison, a first-person psychological horror game. A game where you wake up in a dark room with hands covered in blood. So the story of this game is you are actually held captive by a demon called Madison, that's continuing a ritual that started decades ago and basically captured you and forced you to engage in it, even complete it. In fact, the game asks the question, will you be able to finish this sinister ceremony? A lot of the gameplay will revolve around puzzles, as well as taking pictures with an instant camera to see what's going on in the beyond, because as a human existing in the human world, you don't necessarily see all of it. It's an interesting premise, and it's a very good-looking game. I think it's definitely worth some time when it comes out on PC, June 24th. And number 5 is Silt, an aquatic horror game that looks a lot like Limbo by Playdead, but A, is not made by that developer. It's made by Spiral Circus Games, and B, it takes place underwater. What we're basically looking at here is a free motion, move in any direction underwater, scuba diving platformer, I guess. It's not really a platformer because you're not doing platform jumping, but it is 2D and therefore inherits a lot of what is clearly its influences, A, in Limbo, and B, in perhaps other Metroidvanias. To me, it kind of looks like if you combine Limbo with the more difficult, very deep areas and Subnautica, perhaps. But there's also a story going on that there's going to be plenty to find. There's puzzles to solve and a lot of exploration to do. It's a really pretty looking game from all of the footage, and it looks like it's definitely going to be one that's worth playing when it comes out June 1st on Steam, with console releases coming later. And number 4 is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, a spin-off of Fire Emblem 3 Houses, not technically a sequel or a mainline entry, and if you're looking at it, you can probably tell pretty quickly that this is not a turn-based tactical JRPG, but in fact a Warriors-style game where you fight hordes of enemies, a la Dynasty Warriors or Hyrule Warriors, etc., etc. Now, as we know, Koei Tecmo has figured out that open-world versions of these games is not something you should do. Dynasty Warriors 9, I'm looking at you. And it looks like they're just giving a action-focused Fire Emblem Warriors type game where you'll obviously experience more stories in that world, even featuring some of the characters from Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Honestly, the spin-off Warriors games are usually the ones that I enjoy the most. They always include something unique to the property themselves, and I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how that plays out for Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes comes to Nintendo Switch on June 24th. At number 3 is Sonic Origins, a remaster of the first 4 Sonic games. Actually, technically first 5, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles here is treated as one game, as it should be. It's a collection of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic CD, Sonic 2, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles that plays inside the same engine as Sonic Mania, which really handles all that stuff very well, fixes a lot of the old problems of Sonic, and further gives you all of the original music, which was one of the main reasons Sonic 3 and Knuckles hasn't been released as a remake at any point. Thankfully, that's where we are, because it's the best of all the old Sonic games in my opinion, and it'll be great to be playing it on the new, much better Sonic Mania engine. Sonic Origins is coming to PC and pretty much every console on June 23rd. And number 2 is Mario Strikers Battle League, the third game in the Mario Strikers series, and one of Nintendo Switch's few particularly sports-oriented entries. We have a club mode with this, though, where groups of up to 20 players can create basically everything in a season, from teams to strategies, etc. Now, this is the first Mario Strikers game in a long time. The previous one was on the Wii. It came out in 2007, and the multiplayer stuff is kind of what's the most exciting about this. It's a big jump for the series, and really everything about it is a big jump for the series. See, the fun thing about this is if you've played Mario Kart and you combine that with soccer, you kind of know what's up. And I think that what this sounds like, kind of a battle soccer in which you have Mario Kart items to throw at other players, like banana peels, shells, etc. And frankly, it seems like it could be a really good game with all of the modern modifications as well as multiplayer modes. I'm excited for it. I enjoy competitive Nintendo games, and I will definitely be playing Battle League when it lands on the Nintendo Switch on June 10th. And finally, at number 1, it's The Quarry, the spiritual successor to Supermassive Games Until Dawn, and the first post-Dark Pictures anthology game for the studio. So there is a lot to talk about with this one. It's made by an extremely talented team that's given us a ton of really interesting, unique stories already in the Dark Pictures anthology and Until Dawn, as well as Until Dawn's spinoff. The Quarry looks to up the ante a bit. For one, there is an A-list A-list cast. We've got David Arquette from Scream, Lynn Shay from Nightmare on Elm Street, Brenda Song from Dollface, Ariel Winter from Modern Family. Lots of big names, so you'll probably be recognizing voices in it, and that's good because you're going to be with them for about 10 hours on average, and there are a total of, get this, 186 possible endings in this game. That's a lot. That's ridiculous. They've also added a feature that I'm not sure whether people will really like or really dislike, but if you've already beaten the game, or if you buy the deluxe version of it, you'll be given a new feature called Death Rewind, which is kind of the equivalent of a lives mechanic in that if you have a character die, you can go back to the decision you made that made them die and make a different choice. Overall, it sounds like a pretty good, interesting upgrade to the formula, and to be frank, an 80s inspired horror game, which kind of intentionally adheres to those types of tropes, has a kind of basic sounding story with a town full of people that are bloodthirsty and a big creature that's supposedly the main big bad. I think it's going to be a blast. This is a developer that does these types of games really well, and I will definitely be playing The Quarry when it comes to the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and PC on June 10th. We've also got a couple of bonus games for you in the form of Capcom Fighting Collection, which is exactly that. And let's just be clear, this is a game full of so many great Capcom fighting games that don't just start and end with Street Fighter. You got stuff like Darkstalkers, Night Warriors. It's a really extensive collection that I think any Capcom fan would love to get their hands on. Coming to consoles and PC on June 24th. And Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, an expansion that brings you new monsters, new places to explore, new quests, new everything. And Monster Hunter Rise is frankly really just a great Monster Hunter title. That's coming to Switch on June 30th. MX vs. ATV Legends, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a two-wheeler and four-wheeler racing off-road game, which gives you not only racing but open world type gameplay, a career mode, and a large amount of customization. This is the next in a long line of games. All of them have been fun. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, The Hinokami Chronicles. Try saying that one 3 times fast. Now this is a Switch release of a game that came out fall last year. It's a fighting game with a really large roster. This is a game that takes the 3D that looks like 2D anime approach to a new level. Genuinely, I wouldn't be shocked if you start seeing anime made like this, because it's incredibly impressive looking, and it's also a good fighting game. Again, that is landing on Switch on June 10th. And then DNF Duel, a 2.5D action fighting game set in the Dungeon and Fighter franchise. Again, another game that does this 3D that looks like 2D anime very well. This one wasn't out on another platform before. This is a new game, and frankly, it looks like a lot of fun. DNF Duel is landing on PC as well as PlayStation 4 and 5 June